Let's talk about who I am and why you should care. I'm going to tell you how I started my blog, why I started my blog, and I'm going to share with you the growth of my blog. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the welcoming section, I was a 9-to-5er. I was working in film and production, and although, like I said, I enjoyed my job, there was something else I wanted to do. Now, I have always been a seamstress. I love fashion, I love style, I love clothing, and I was sewing all the time. I was making my own patterns, I was drafting, I was doing everything I could think of in the fashion world, but it was for personal reasons. I was doing it because I simply enjoyed it. When I started my blog in 2012, I did it as a way to journal what I was doing. I wanted to take a look back at the end of the year and see what I had accomplished. What I noticed is that when I started the blog, I started to get really excited about it. I was into it, I was sharing tips, things that I was doing that other home sewers were not necessarily doing. Now, my blog personally is based on fashion and DIY. If you don't know what DIY means, it means do it yourself. We do a lot of sewing, fashion design, we create dresses and skirts and pants and all kinds of things. And I think what set my blog apart was the fact that although there were a ton of sewing blogs that did aprons and pillows and quilting, and then there were a ton of fashion blogs, there were very few blogs that joined fashion and sewing together. What I noticed about 6 months into my blogging is that people were interested in what I was doing. I was working with commercial patterns. These are patterns that you buy at a Joann's or a Walmart or a Michael's craft store. And you open it up, you cut around it, you cut your fabric, you sew the pieces together, and you create a garment. The only difference is that I was taking these commercial patterns and I was modifying them to make them similar to things that I was seeing on the runway. Well, that became very popular, and because I made very basic things like pencil skirts and maxi dresses, it was a huge hit with the ladies. Everybody wanted to learn how to make a pencil skirt or a maxi skirt, and I was so willing to teach them. When I first launched my blog in 2012, mimichistyle.com, I had maybe about 600 to 800 page views that first month. And trust me, there were times when I was writing and thinking, who am I writing for? Because nobody is reading. But as I started to really share what I was doing, and sharing it because I simply enjoyed it and not because I had an ulterior motive in mind, I started to notice a really great interest in what I was doing. And slowly but surely, people started to share it and visit and repost and share what I was doing. At the end of that first year, I ended with about 1.5 million page views in just 1 year. Now, I can attribute my success to a couple of things. One is that I hit a very specific target. Like I said, there were a ton of sewing blogs and there were a ton of fashion blogs, but there were very few that were bringing them together, and so I filled that need. But more importantly, I did it in my own voice, and that was authentic to me, and no one else can be you but you. The other thing I attribute my success to is being consistent and giving freely of myself. I gave as much free information as I could, and when I developed products that I wanted my followers to purchase, they then supported my ventures. After that first year, I realized that I had hit something, that I was touching on something that could potentially be big. And so I refocused my energy from it being a hobby and a journal to really focusing on how I could create this blog into a full-time business for myself. And that's what I'm going to teach you to do. Now, I love online learning, so I applaud you for taking the initiative. I love being able to teach myself something, and a lot of times it came out of necessity. I'm a high school dropout. I didn't go to college, so when I needed to learn something, I had to teach it to myself. I spent a lot of time at the library. I have purchased every book that I needed. When I needed to learn graphic design because I couldn't afford to hire a graphic designer, I taught myself. When I needed to build a website and I couldn't afford a web designer, I taught myself. I taught myself how to sew. I taught myself how to make patterns. And as I have grown in my business, I have taught myself just about every aspect of running a business as well. I know for some people, they need to be in a classroom setting with other people, and online learning may be a little bit difficult for some people, but I truly appreciate it because I learn at my pace. I can always stop, rewind, revisit, replay the sections that I need help with, which you can't necessarily do in a classroom setting. So I am all for online learning, and thank you for taking this course.